What's up, party people? Welcome back to the You and Me podcast. I am the one and only Carolina, coming at you, not live, but coming at you raw and real. I just released our second guest last week. If you haven't had the pleasure to tune in, it was Miss Mindy. She was incredible. And I hope you guys are enjoying the guest on the podcast because I am continuing to live life and experience, and throughout the journey find people that I'm like, mid-conversation, do you want to be on my podcast? Because that's how we operate. I am really eager to record today's episode because I just found out this week that I really like croissants. And I don't know if this is old or new or whatever, but recently, actually, let's just talk about the week because that's what we do. I have been slowly but surely getting back into a workout routine, and the timing, as always, is divine. Life isn't really going my way, and I've been having a lot of frustrations, and I like the word that I saw today, inconveniences, and to use that energy in a positive way. I feel like movement is something that just kind of helps like alleviate the anxiety and the stress. And I, the other day, took myself on a little solo date, and I decided to drive my car all the way up to Mount Tabor, which is probably about a 30-minute drive from my house. And if you don't know what Mount Tabor is an old volcano that resides in Portland, Oregon, and is incredible. The greenery, the trails, as you guys know, it's where they have their Wednesday ecstatic dance, which we just talked about, and just an incredible place. But on the entrance of this volcano, there's a set of stairs, and if ChatGPT is correct, I believe it's 238 stairs. But the way that it's leveled is amazing because they're all of equal height. And they're incredibly wide, so you could have up to 8 people on the staircase running. And I used to do stairs like a maniac when I moved to Portland. I actually was introduced to the 12th Street stairs in one of my workout classes at PSU. And the thing about stairs is they never get easier, but they're just a fun way to kind of change things up rather than just going on a standard run. You're like, let's do stairs. And it's really nice to set that goal. Sorry, my headphones. Set the goal of like, I'm gonna do 5 stairs. And again, it just having the idea of doing something and then accomplishing it just feels amazing. So anyways, took myself on a date and I did 3 stair sets. And afterwards I was like, I would love to get a smoothie and to just chill, and I did that. And now as I'm saying this, oh, here we go, I got my train of thought again. As I was coming home, I was like, you know what sounds like a great treat? A croissant, like a buttery, flaky croissant. There's something, it's not like a piece of bread, which, by the way, slaps. I'm a huge fan of all types of bread, but there's something about a croissant that's so like delicate and airy, but it has that like buttery taste, and then you slap on some Nutella on it. Oof, I could probably eat like 6 of those a day, to be honest. So that's my first update, is I have been vibing heavy on croissants. We actually just bought like a mini pack of 30 of them, and I just like microwave it for 10 seconds, put some Nutella on it, and there's something about it that just like hits the spot. Highly recommend go getting a croissant. I'm telling you, you're not gonna be mad. Also, if you guys have any recommendations of like coffee shops or places to get a croissant, my ears are open. So, I feel like I'm in a season of hardship at the moment. Like, things aren't going my way, and not in all aspects of my life, but again, it feels like I'm beating it with a dead horse. But really, when it comes to work, it's just like time and time again, the things that are currently happening in my job, and you're like, well, what's happening? Not being paid on time, not having consistent schedule, which is something I want to talk about. When I first got this job, which I realize now, reflecting on it, and I've done a lot of a lot of chatting with ChatGPT. Highly recommend. A lot of the reason I'm put in this situation is because a lot of the answers that I came in with, like, what's the pay structure and what are the hours and how are we getting paid, and if I'm picking up shifts at this location, what's happening? Like, a lot of the answers that I received in the beginning were very much so like not direct. They were in progress, or what they hope to be, or what I can work up to. And that's something that I'm recognizing within myself of, really wanting to shift out of hospitality, realizing that, a lot of that work for me was on a deeper level, like struggling with the people pleasing aspect, struggling with like the lack of boundaries. Like, I think these are all things that we've all heard, but to really make it personal and talk about myself, I would say, like, even when I'm rereading the emails of when I first got hired on and I asked these questions of, are you providing a laptop to do the work? And what about a cell phone or stipend? Like, these are all things that now I'm like, I deserve those things. And I know in the next time I get into a job, like, really going over the benefits and what the job can provide you, because I think I've talked about this before. So often do we get into a job interview and we're like, pick me. I need the money. I know I can learn to do this, or I know I'm qualified to do this, and I am your person, so you should pick me. And really recently been working on this idea of like, it's not about you picking me, it's about me picking you. Because when you come from a place of high self-worth and boundaries and out of this people pleasing, you begin to realize the strength and the qualities that you bring to a job. And no longer is it that you're desperately wanting them to pick you, but now you have the option as a person to recognize that there's a lot of jobs out there. And we, the people, have the opportunity at any given moment to say, you know what, I'm done with this job. And of course, there's talk about giving your 2 weeks notice and leaving in an amicable way, which I'm always torn on that, because again, it's that whole debate of like, well, if a job were to fire you, they probably wouldn't give you a 2-week notice, so why give it to them? And I think it really depends on your situation. I know that there's been times where I haven't given my 2 weeks and I've just been like, you know what, I'm done. Like, this is my last straw. I can't do any more of this. And I think, the downside of that is that it could later on in your future bite you in the butt, whether that person knows the person who's head of that place. And just when you live in a town, people talk and there's a reputation, and it's always great to leave on a positive note. But I also understand that sometimes you're at the point where you're just like, F that, I can't. And that's real too, because again, I've done that and I've learned. But going back to this current job I'm in, I've just been reflecting on all the things that have happened, and I'm just recognizing that there were so many signs in the beginning, just like a relationship. There's so many signs in the beginning that people tend to show you who they are. Like, I was even reading the email today, and one of the first emails that I received, my name was spelled wrong. And I'm like, wow, it's crazy that I'm just now seeing that. And I'm trying to not beat myself up on that and be like, damn, like, I even asked ChatGPT, like, how did I fall for this, And it was like, whoa, like, you were in a situation before that wasn't ideal. And I always like to say it was like a sinking ship. And in that, you were looking for something better, and you were hopeful, and you were able to find something that you had high hopes of, but clearly you signed up for something that, again, was never in writing, was never made clear, and that from the jump should have been a red flag of, hey, I need a direct answer. If we're talking about paying commission, I need you to give me exactly how the breakdown is and what works and what are the exact number, not this like, yay, I'm excited, and we're gonna do this, and we'll get you onto this, and we'll set a take-home goal, and then it's like now sitting in almost 3 months later, and none of that has happened. Which leads me to my story of when I was first hired on. there was talk about it being event, and then the other talk was essentially helping out at the second venue in a restaurant to pick up shifts, to kind of, events can be very unpredictable, and in order to compensate for some money, there was talk about like, hey, you have years of experience in restaurants, so let's get you plugged into some of these shifts. And again, in that moment of time, I was like, sure, let's do it. Obviously, I want to get out of that, but let's be open. That was in May, and we are now in August. So months have passed, and I've yet to pick up any of these shifts. There's been all this chat about there aren't any available shifts and there aren't enough hours, and as time progresses, I'm like, yeah, as much as some extra money sounds great, but also, what also is really nice? The fact that I haven't stepped into a restaurant in a couple months, and just my nervous system and my mental health, and recognizing how that environment for me was not a place I wanted to be in. And last week I got a message from somebody who does a schedule, and they were like, hey, we're wondering if we can get you into a training host shift at the restaurant. And I was like, okay. First, my reaction was, fuck no. There's no way I want to do that. And then I had a real talk with myself. I was like, you know what, Carolina? You've been complaining that this person hasn't kept their word. Here they are knocking on your door. Granted, yes, it is 3 months later, but they are now wanting to go through with their word and have you pick up some shifts. So you owe it not only to yourself to do this, to then not complain anymore and say that they haven't kept all of their word, because here they are months later doing it. So I was like, you know what? As much as I know that this is not the place I want to be, and let me just tell you how I felt. I'm going to be raw and real, and I'm going to say this for anybody who is currently in a restaurant job. There's no hate. I get it. I've been there, done that. This is, again, for my own personal opinion. So if I'm offending you because you are in a restaurant, well, then it's probably time to quit. But no, if you don't know, the way that a lot of restaurants work, just like a lot of jobs, right? There's levels, right? There's like the entry level, and usually the most entry level position in a restaurant, for front of the house specifically, is like a hosting / busing job. And I say entry level as this is the job that we have deemed at restaurants to be less difficult because it's less involved. Now, you can make the argument and say that I think any position and job in the restaurant is difficult, and each job carries its own set of weight and stressors, and ultimately, without each position, your restaurant is not going to run smoothly. So each job should be respected and paid at a livable wage, not no minimum wage. But again, I digress. So I started off my restaurant career as a host. And essentially, again, if you guys don't know, a host is a person who's like, usually you come into the restaurant, they're excited to see you. They're like, hey, what's up? Welcome in. I like to hit them with the double wave. Everybody's always like, oh my God. And then you're looking at some type of system, whether you're using Resi or Open Table or whatever is out there. And as the host, you're kind of playing a game of Tetris. Like, you're the person who sees all these reservations, and again, what's funny about restaurant work is like we're all in this the same, right? Like, we've all been programmed to be like, dinner is anywhere between 5, which is on the early end, to around 8 o'clock, which is towards the late end for most general population. So of course, when you're working in a restaurant, usually from 6 to 8 o'clock are going to be like your craziest. Everybody's coming in all at once to do the same exact thing, and if they're all coming in at once, they're all gonna leave at once, which is exactly what restaurant is. It's like, it's slow, it's chill, you're bored out of your mind, and then all of a sudden it pops off and it's crazy, and you're like, why can't I just like trickle in? It's either all or nothing, which is, again, I've learned for myself, awful, because it's like, I rather do piece by piece rather than being a frantic chicken with my head cut off. And so the host is essentially in charge of seating people. And not only is that incredibly important because obviously they're like the first impression of when you come into a restaurant. They're also the people in charge of giving you a table. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of people have opinions. And a lot of people have preferences. And a lot of people aren't thinking, you have to seat all 100 people in the next 30 minutes. No. That's not their job to think that. Their job is to come in and enjoy their dinner. And it is your job to make sure that happens. And so as a host, when you take somebody to their lovely table and you pull out their chair and you hand them their menu and you give them a glass of water and you let them know that the server will be right with you, 9 times out of 10 you can guarantee that person's gonna be like, I want that table, or actually I want to sit outside. And so you have to be very welcoming and calm and very much so people pleaser, and you have to be like, you know what, no problem, I can move that table for you, because guess what, you get what you want. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, you're right and you get what you want. Okay, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is a position of a hostess. And nowadays, because a lot of restaurants are struggling to make ends meet because shit is freaking expensive, oftentimes now a host isn't just hosting, they're also in charge of helping bus tables, because as I just stated before, you usually have your window where it's very busy, and then outside of that window you're kind of twiddling your thumb and you're kind of just looking around at a screen. And so it's like, listen, in a restaurant job, we do not pay you to stand there. We do not pay you to socialize. We pay you to work. And so there's this idea of you are constantly moving and you're constantly moving. And part of being a team player, it means you're bussing tables as well nowadays. So I'm giving you this story because I was asked to do a hosting training shift for the restaurant this week. And I was like, I'm gonna do it, just to say like, you know what, I did it. And then if I am ever asked to be in a restaurant again, my answer is gonna be no. And so I just want to talk about my experience. I want to talk about the fact that egotistically, I was like, how am I continuing and trying to do better and work on myself, and in turn wanting my world to reflect that? And then I was like in this like victim state of mind of like, how is this my reality right now? That was a really hard pill to swallow. And when I came in, the first thing that just threw me past myself was I was waiting on the person who was supposed to train me, and this person didn't even know that they were training me. The person who coordinated everything was like, oh yeah, like they're running a little bit late. Oh crap, I forgot to tell them that you're training them. And I was like, okay, strike number one. I was like, in a professional, respectful setting, if you're being asked to train somebody, training is difficult. Training can be annoying because, I shouldn't say annoying, but training is like something that you do every day, and you've built what's the word I'm looking for? You just know what you're doing, and after a while of your job, it becomes second nature, right? You're not having to think about things necessarily, especially in the restaurant world. It just becomes like rinse and repeat. But when you're having to have someone come in new, you really want to be thorough. And I have been in a lot of times in a position of training someone, and I personally sometimes enjoy it because it really makes you analyze things of how can we better a system right there. And when I think about training, I always like to get down to the basics, because for example, in my experience, there's been times where I've hired people on and I've been like, okay, go bust that table. And even the ways in which you bust a table is not something that comes second nature. how you wipe down the table, whether like, if people are wiping down the chairs first and then the table, like, oh, that doesn't necessarily make sense, because if you wipe the table and then it's just going to crumble on the chairs, you might as well wipe the chairs last. So it's just certain things, or even how you bus a table. There's so much rhyme and reason and a gracefulness in which you can do it, that I think really coming from an expert level and training someone to do this step by step gives them the tools and resources to do the job right. And so already to come in and know that this person wasn't prepared to train you was already, in a way, to me, felt disrespectful, of like, oh, so you didn't respect them enough to let them know that they are going to do more work, which means that you're probably not going to pay them anymore to train, which I think, red flag. And then also for me, you're not respecting my time in making sure that there's a prepared program in which you train somebody. When I say prepared program, there should be like an outline, like a standard operation of procedure, SOP, write this down, of, okay, so step one, usually when somebody comes into a space, I think you always want to start off with a tour. Get them acquainted with the space. Allow them to feel comfortable. Hey, welcome in. Here are the restrooms. Just in case you need to use the restroom. Here's where you fill up your water bottle, because you're about to get active. We're moving, you're talking to people, you're on your feet for 5+ hours. Like, let's get you comfortable. And then also let's show you where everything goes, right? Because if you are bussing a table and you're holding dishes, or if you are the front of the restaurant and people are coming in, they're going to ask you where the restroom's at, or they're going to want you to take them to the table. And if you aren't acquainted with your space, how can you properly do that? And then the next thing, usually with training is in restaurants, because everything is on this grid, the tables are usually numbered. So you want to acquaint the person with, hey, this is table 10, 11, 12, whatever your system is, letting them know so they can then do their job. Then you want to go over the proper way. How do you greet people? What kind of menus are we on? Are we on happy hour? How long does happy hour go on till? Do you have any specials that we're supposed to tell the table? Do you give them water? Does the server give them water? Do you pull out the chair? What's kind of your way, and are you more of a upscale restaurant, or you are just a more casual where people seat themselves? Like, these are all things that I think intentionality and being methodical, and so not to bog you down with all the boring details of it, but none of that happened. It was just like a very casual, the person who was training me was like chatting about, their dating experience and that they're tired and their cats and like all the things. That you're like, great, I'm glad you're personable. I'm glad you feel safe that you want to talk to me. But in my head, I'm just thinking like, this is exactly why, one of the reasons why I'm getting out of this industry, because it's not to say that you shouldn't be able to have fun and casual and have conversation, but it's to say that it lacks a sense of respect, like, you should respect me because I'm coming in, and I'm respecting you because you should be teaching me, quote unquote, even though I already know what the heck is going on. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about the fact that being in a restaurant really, in a positive spin, I came home that night and I was just like, how have I worked in these environments for so long? Like, there's a part of me that was angry, that was like, I just don't know how I've been able to put up with this. And then on the positive, it's like, well, this is incredible that I am, in a sense, waking up and realizing that, like, yeah, I want something that feels way more aligned, and I want something that is going to respect my time, and I want something that's going to give me higher pay. So just recognizing that, I am still on this journey of growth. And I will say, in conclusion of the story, is I originally thought that, every once in a while, if we can't find anyone to pick up the shift and we're kind of in a scramble, like, we'll hit you up to see if you can cover the shift. That was, again, the agreement that I thought was happening, and then to see that I was just put on the schedule. And on top of it, not even just put on the schedule, but put on the schedule on a Friday night from midday to late night, which I'm like, again, you think I'm gonna pick up an evening shift to at the start of the weekend where everybody is ready to have fun, they've worked all week, they are ready to make plans, whether you're hanging out on a Friday or you're gonna lay low on a Friday because you know you have something to do fun on a Saturday. I'm like, why would I give up my precious time to do that? Like, I don't think so. And so I respectably messaged the person. I said, you know what? Working in a restaurant is not something I desire to do. I don't think it's healthy for myself nor the team. And I would like to be put off the schedule, and I'm not willing to pick up shifts. And I'm really proud of myself. It's like I showed up, I kept my word, and I did it. And I respectably said, hell to the no, I'm done with that shit. The other update I want to tell you guys about is I feel like it's so easy to get in a pattern of like you're working all day, you're doing all your have-tos, you're being an adult, and then it's the end of the evening and you're just like, you wanna put on the TV, you wanna watch a show, you wanna chill, you wanna cuddle, or you wanna chill by yourself, you wanna cuddle your dog, your cat, or you just wanna put on your YouTube and like listen. It's nice, your brain turns off, you can relax. Like it's just such an easy way to end the day. And I feel like we have got into this pattern of just like without even having to think about it, just do it. And then again, it's like it's free. There's just so many reasons why it's easy. And this ties in with it's been summer and we have been on this pattern of doing our nightly evening walks, which has just been such a joy. Moving your body after dinner, looking at all the greenery and pointing at all the plants, you know, looking at houses, just connecting. Like it's just such a beautiful thing that I highly recommend. Like if you're not already doing it, whether it's the evening or the morning, but I just really want to advocate, like we all know, we've heard it a million times, but going on a walk at least once a day can really, really help with so many mental things. So we've been going on these evening walks and I've been noticing like as we're looking at houses, like you just see that every single house has their TV on. And it makes me sad because I think about this for myself. I'm like, as many hours as I spend watching TV, like imagine if I was reading a book or working out or creating art or calling a friend or playing chess or learning something new or gardening. Like just it's easy to think like if I took that chunk in a week and I spent that time on something else, like what would be different? And so that has kind of been what I've been feeling for a while. And I just this week got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm sick of this and I'm making a shift. So I took a piece of paper and on the piece of paper I wrote out of order and I stuck it on the TV and I was like, listen, this TV is not turning on. This TV is broken. We are changing our evenings. We're not doing TV. We're going to be creative and we're going to think of other things to do. And I'm going to be honest with you. We went 2 days. And then yesterday we cracked. We had a long day. We're like, you want to watch our show? And we did. But I will say the 2 days before, I read a book. We gave each other massages. I've been painting. And so I just want to challenge you, if you are in that rut, to just try. And don't beat yourself up. Sure, of course, I want to keep it going. But that's the thing. The sign is back on the TV. And guess what? Tonight, we're not doing TV. Because there's nothing inherently wrong with TV. In fact, it's enjoyable. It's why we all want to do it. But as anything, treating it with intentionality. Like if I could watch TV maybe once or twice a week, and then the other days of the week I'm doing something, whether it's reading a book or listening to a podcast or just even nothing, just laying there, that to me feels better. So that's my recommendation. Those are my updates. This is where I'm at. And, you know, that's all I have to say. feels good to just get on here and chat. And I hope that